guys ready? Lobby up.
Hey guys, lobby up.
GG's, lobby up.
Dude, we gotta lobby up.
Lobby up.
Hey, should we lobby up? Lobby up, y'all.
Hey, let's grab a beer. Lobby up. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Lobby Up. You have Matt and Lewis in the pod today.
What is up, everyone?
Today, we're back for another spotlight, and today we are coming with some big guns. We are going to be talking about Sea of Stars.
Yeah, man, this has been a highly anticipated game for us to talk about. Gio is one of our friends, a good friend of Lewis, good friend of the studio. He recommended a game to us a while back called The Messenger, made by Sabotage Studio, and it was a phenomenal game. If you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out. We went all out that episode, pulled all the stops. We loved the game. And because of that, we were super excited to play the next one. And Gio, my man Gio, he was pushing us hard to get into that next one. And we were like, listen, man, we got a lot of other games we're trying to play. We'll get into it as soon as we can. But truth be told, we got right into it. I know I did. I just started playing that game right away. And man, it did not disappoint. This game is basically kind of like the old school JRPG style. When you start off this game, you pick either one of two main protagonists, either a male or female, and you really, really look up to your teacher, the one who's kind of showing you the way of the Solstice Warrior. And in the beginning, you're thrown a lot of information, trying to figure out the power of the sun and the moon, and trying to figure out why you're making this cloth for what feels like 10 years. But when you finally do get all that sorted out, you embark on this journey, and it kind of starts off light, but you're immediately met with some of these darker, heavier tones. And it turns out that a lot more than you bargained with is weighing on your shoulders. And that is the true meaning of where this game really takes you.
Yes, and you meet some of the best characters along the way, which we will definitely get to.
Oh, yes. You meet one of them very early on, in fact.
Yes, sir. But listen, dude, this game, again, highly recommended by Gio. So highly recommended, in fact, dude. So one time I was at his shop and I was like, Gio, dude, I'm always here, man. And listen, I love hanging out with you. I love hanging, in the shop, talking games and stuff. But I'm like, it's time to elevate our friendship, dude. Let's go out. Let's go have a drink, dude. Let's go hang out outside of Cyber Sage.
I can't believe that you guys still haven't actually hung out outside of his shop.
Yeah, which surprisingly, and that's the life of, a dad. It's hard to make friends.
Plot twist, he's the real life shopkeeper and he can't leave.
Well, he told me, he's like, listen, you want to do that? You have to finish and play Sea of Stars and then we'll talk. Dude.
Imagine having to play a whole game just to earn a friendship.
Well, listen, after beating this game, I kind of see why. I get it.
Yeah, that's true.
Our last shout out to Gio. Before we really get into it, he is the owner of Cyber Sage here in Lakeland, Florida. He is your guy for all things retro gaming. We're going to link his stuff in the description below, and we will post him here in the visuals. So thanks again, Gio.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks again, man. Awesome game recommendation.
So let's get right into it, man. So we're going to break this down into 3 parts, and we're going to start with music. And I think arguably, it's, at least for many, music is probably the best thing about this game.
Honestly, dude, I have written in my personal notes here that the music is the single most memorable thing that stayed with me. After I finished the game, I'm still just in my head just humming all of the tunes.
Dude, it's so good. The other day I had a game night with my neighbors and we were trying to figure out some music to play. I literally just put Sea of Stars OST and just had it playing in the background. Both my neighbor Will and now my friend too, Clay, they were just like, yo, what is this music? I'm like, dudes, Sea of Stars. Just go and play it. Clay literally said, he's like, I want to play it just for the OST, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's that good. And the first game, The Messenger, has an absolutely legendary soundtrack, and it was made by this guy. His name is Rainbowdragoneyes, is what he goes by as an artist, and he stayed around for Sea of Stars, so it makes sense that it just still has such a high quality of music.
Dude, did you know that there's actually an even crazier person on that team? I just found out in doing research for this game that one of the producers for Chrono Trigger, the music for Chrono Trigger, Yasunori Mitsuda, super legendary producer in the game. And honestly speaking, I've never played Chrono Trigger before, admittedly, definitely gonna play it after this game, but I've heard his music in the gaming sphere. I know the music he's produced, and to have him on this team is just wild.
That is crazy. I actually did not know that. And just to have somebody so legendary in that aspect joining this with such a small studio, Sabotage Studio. I mean, they've only made literally these 2 games. And for someone like that to have their attention, that speaks for itself.
And honestly, thank the messenger, because he said that the reason that he had faith in this project was from how good they did in the messenger, especially music wise. And you can tell that the music was in the forefront of their brains throughout this entire adventure. Right off the bat, one of my favorite tracks in the entire game is literally in the first minute of the game, in the first town. Mooncradle's theme is so like, I got goosebumps just talking about it. It's ethereal and just such a perfect homage to the typical safe haven of that first town in every RPG that I've ever played.
Yes. Yeah, and I think what more perfect of a type of music than for it to be this kind of mystical lullaby for a town called Mooncradle.
Exactly.
So I just thought it was so beautiful.
And I felt like throughout, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see the connection here, but if you just listen throughout the whole OST, they really drive home stars in space and that ethereal feeling of just floating through it. It's encompassed in almost every single track. And if it's not encompassed in it, that means you're in a wicked crazy battle that deserves all the attention.
Right.
Speaking of which, I think you mentioned before to me off mic what your favorite track is.
Yes. And honestly, dude, I think that this was most easily encapsulated by the comparison to Pokemon, because whenever you're in an RPG, you're going to be doing a lot of repetitive things over and over and over and over again. And so that's why you need a really good battle theme. And man, did they knock it out of the park. Every single time that I went into battle, I mean, you're literally about to fight some little, like, I don't know, mole rat or some little tiny creature that doesn't even matter.
Dumbest creature ever.
And it pumps you up every single time. And that's like even 25 years ago when we're playing Pokemon on our Game Boy, and it's like rat-a-tat. It's like it doesn't even matter what you're doing, but it pumps you up. You have to do that in the repetitive thing that you're doing over and over again. And they knocked it out of the park.
And to be honest, one of my complaints, actually, the very small complaints I've had through this game, towards the end of my gameplay, I'm super mega OP. Like, anybody that walks even near me, I could blow at them and they'll fly away. And it would kind of get annoying that I would run into this low-level creature as I'm backtracking to find all, like, the hidden stuff. And the only consolation was just that amazing battle music, dude. It's so good.
Yes, dude. Those regular battles are great, but then when you get into the actual boss battles, you don't think that they're going to be able to raise the bar any higher, and then they just blow you out of the water.
Dude, one of my other than Mooncradle, one of the top tier songs of this game is the battle with Stormcaller is phenomenal. The pirate, ghost pirate, just the accordion is just like on fire and it's just like hitting, and I'm just like, I'm gonna hold off beating your fucking ass so that I can listen to this mad lad just go hard on this accordion. It is so freaking good. I could literally go through every boss fight and just be like, phenomenal, great. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. The boss music every single time does not miss. I don't think the music misses at all, bro.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And what's even more mind-boggling about this artist is how masterfully they can create music that calls back to the messenger. And I feel like that is something that will just instantly pull you into all of your thoughts of the first game. And it's such a nice nod. And I really appreciated the moments when you get to kind of like see a little like glimpse of the messenger. That was really, really nice. And I think the music just made all of it more of a surreal experience.
Well, dude, that first time going into Glacial Peak, I believe that's the first instance of
Yeah,
literally being in the
right.
messenger.
Yeah.
At least in a prequel. Spoiler, it's a prequel. That first time hearing that messenger music, just absolute chills. It's fantastic. And Geo made it clear, the internet makes it clear, it's not necessary to play the messenger first,
Right.
but to me it's required reading. That is something you should play. It'll only enhance the experience. The moments you hear the messenger music and you start seeing messenger locations, it's just a perfect tie-in, and it just, like I said, it enhances that experience. I had nostalgia for a game I played like, what, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
And I think because, we're kind of seasoned veterans of gamers, that playing in this art style also just kind of brings us into that nostalgic appeal, and that's okay. I'm here for it, but yeah, I think that it's a really cool experience.
Speaking of nostalgia, this game is just chock full of nostalgic, true to form, turn-based RPG elements and all of the above. So like getting into the gameplay, like I said, turn-based RPG, I see it as a mix of traditional RPG with, weirdly enough, unless there's another RPG out there that does it that I just can't think of right now, but very much borrows from the Mario and Luigi saga of RPGs for the Game Boy Advance.
Okay.
I got that vibe throughout my entire gameplay. Like when you do an attack and you press A to like enhance the damage, that's straight out of Mario and Luigi, Partners in Time, and all of the above.
And it's a great addition to try to keep the combat interesting and to try to give you that skill that you can develop, because like you said, it can kind of become very monotonous when you are just, I'm going to launch a stronger attack, I'm going to heal, I'm going to attack. If you don't have that balance to continue engaging the player, or at least like trying to do something new with these turn-based RPGs, it can kind of make you think like, what makes it stand out?
Yeah, which I personally really love the gameplay. Based off my research, I try to get everybody's opinion throughout the internet, and then of course tonight we're going to get your opinion as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like the fan base of this game is very much divided with the actual gameplay.
Yeah, and there's a lot that I love about this game, do not get me wrong, but I do have a lot of problems with the gameplay itself. I am in that camp, and I think it's just because I have played a lot of RPGs, turn-based, and several other varieties, and I think that when it comes to this game, a game that I compared it to a lot, for me personally, I didn't play the Mario and Luigi RPGs, but one of the ones I did play was called Golden Sun. Very beloved, made by Capcom. Just got to make an RPG and they ran with it, and it's easily to this day one of my favorite RPGs of all time, a game you will play. And
Dun dun dun.
And I made a lot of direct comparisons throughout my time playing Sea of Stars, and I do think that there are things that could have been done to expand the combat in Sea of Stars that they chose not to, and I was very disappointed with, because they kind of hit you with those cool things right off the bat, and they don't really go anywhere with it, in my opinion. I think that there was a lot of room for growth that they chose not to work on.
So I guess I just see it a little different. I've heard that a lot throughout my research for the episode, and I guess I just see it more as an accessibility thing. And I know to some that's like, oh well, it's outcasting the hardcore RPG players. Dude, I would say I'm a very hardcore RPG player, to the point for this playthrough I actually had it to the highest difficulty setting, because I have this terrible habit, dude, of like leveling myself up immensely before even the first boss, because
Right.
I'm such a stickler for like every single battle I'm doing it, every single little side quest I'm gonna do it right then and there. I'm not gonna wait. And it's actually a problem that I have, especially like with modern RPGs. I mean,
Yes.
it's to the point where any way that I can make it more difficult, I will. And I turned on the Tactician's Medal relic. It's a really awesome relic that actually, to me, not only enhanced like the overall gameplay, but it made battles significantly harder. And the way that it did that was by giving enemies a 60% damage resistance while casting locks, increase player damage taken by 35%, items, including snacks, cannot be used in combat, campfires recover HP up to 50 and do not recover the MP. So that was definitely rough at some points, but again, to me, because of the harder difficulty, it made every single battle and every single choice that I had to make significantly more pressured, if you will. Like, if I made the wrong move, which, let it be known, I did it so many times, where I'm thinking that I have one character and I'm accidentally choosing the wrong character and just making the wrong move, and because it's set to the hardest difficulty, that would ruin an entire boss fight for me and I would lose. So I guess at any given time with my battles, I was locked in every single time.
See, the difference between you and I is you have a lot of fun being a masochist.
I wear a ball gag when I'm playing video games. Every time I lose, I tell Johnny Lee to whip me.
You're hanging by hooks from a region that we can't describe on this podcast every time that you play. And I prefer to just play the game how the developers designed the game to be played. I will always try the game on default settings before I adjust difficulty. If it's like truly too easy, then like I'll throw on something. Even if I turn up the difficulty, that's not going to fix the problem, because yes, I will have to work harder to accomplish the same thing and really kind of like push like my intelligence and the decisions that I make. But that only, I feel like for me, gets me so far.
Which is fair. And you know, I did have a very unique experience playing this game, because unbeknownst to me, halfway through my gameplay, the DLC released. So like I'm halfway through the game and all of a sudden, so it goes from no locks to all the enemies have locks, and then out of nowhere towards the end game for me, the locks become hidden. And I kind of just thought, oh, difficulty progression, cool. And it's like, now I have to like, it'll give you, let's say there's 4 locks, 2 of them will be hidden. So it's like, you know, the first 2, but the other 2 you have to guess. And if you get it wrong, then you get to try again later, and then once you get it right, you'll know what it is in the future. It becomes like a really weird game of like roulette with these enemies.
I was about to say, so you're just transforming from a masochist into a gambling masochist.
Basic. I mean, we play Pokemon Go, so yes, I'm a gambling masochist.
And you know, I'm super stoked for you that like that added an extra layer. And for me, I think that I would just get frustrated that it's not something that I can like analyze. And if for me, I'm like, if I can't just like know, I have to guess, that to me would just be more frustrating.
Dude, it was even better. I'm not gonna lie. Some of the final bosses that I did had that. The final boss, which we'll get to in a little bit, had that. And that dopamine hit of like 10 locks all hidden and getting it right all the way through was just a next level hit, dude. I was like, I need some more of that, baby, because I could have done that all day. It was such a fantastic addition, and I could see that bringing old players back just for one more run through with the new DLC. It was perfect addition, and again, I got it halfway through, so I got to experience it as a difficulty spike.
Right. Yeah, and you know, like I know that totally added another layer for you when it came to the gameplay, especially for the combat. But I gotta say, dude, like that is just one aspect about the gameplay, and it is a large part of it, the combat. But as far as everything else, like the puzzles themselves too, like whenever you're going through the environment, I felt like there was a lot lacking there. And I feel like when you first start off, it's kind of just introducing you to the mechanics, and I'm like, okay, these are simple for a reason. But even towards the end game, it just felt like I could see the whole map ahead of me of what I needed to do, and there's no relic to turn on to make that more difficult. Like the puzzles, it's hard not to compare them to the likes of like Zelda or anything else that's modern, and some people might think that's an unfair comparison, but the thing is, this game was made in 2023, and the games that look like it were made 20-25 years ago and arguably have harder puzzles in them.
Well, to be honest, man, after like playing the likes of Talos Principle and getting my mind completely bent over,
Well, Talos Principle is a whole different level. I feel like I'm trying to make it as fair of a comparison as possible. And
I mean, you
that's
compared it to
definitely not
Zelda.
Zelda from 20 years ago, though.
Fair enough,
I mean,
fair. But
I mean,
I actually appreciated the puzzles being, listen, for as seasoned gamers, to us, again, and I guess this comes back down to like letting it be more accessible to a larger audience. To us, of course, very easy. The base puzzles, you go in, get it done, and then you move on. But some of them were really creative, like that the water, I call it the water temple, I guess a la Zelda here. But right before you meet Rashawn, the archivist, which we'll talk about more in just a little bit, there's this huge puzzle where it's like 3 layers of pipes, and you go through that, and I really enjoyed those puzzles. Admittedly, I will agree they were easy, but I feel like the best challenging puzzles were all in the post game to get the true ending. And there were some puzzles there that were definitely mind-bending that took me like a solid 10-15 minutes to unlock. So I felt like I eventually got my fix. But I guess for an RPG, as much as puzzles are welcomed, I was just happy that there were some in there,
and we'll kind of get to my feelings about the end game as well, but I think that you should never have to play 40 hours of game to get to the parts that are fun. And I think along the way, when it comes to those puzzles, I remember the one you're talking about, and that's actually a perfect spot for me to talk to you about, because I felt like that puzzle was less a puzzle and more like you're a plumber simulator, like where you see the pipe where it needs to go and you just need to push it there. That's more of like an interactive job than it is like a puzzle.
I mean, we grew up on Zelda. What do you mean a job? Do you not remember the water temple there, Mr. Plumber?
Oh.
I wish Mario was there.
Oh, I do. And I'm not even comparing this in my mind when I say Zelda. I don't even mean like Ocarina of Time. I'm talking like Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, a game that looks even a lot like Sea of Stars in that sense. I feel like the puzzles in those games they made more sense. They tickled that part of your brain that is just it is fun. And I really have to say, a lot of the puzzles I just didn't get that feeling. And to make matters worse, dude, one of the most frustrating things for me of this entire game, one of the things that you grind for in RPGs is equipment upgrades, item upgrades. You get those key items. And this game has a lot of key items, a lot of them. And really it just becomes a laundry list of things that you use once. They really are like a key in that sense. They opened one door and then you never use it again. Sometimes there are ones where you kind of use them twice, sort of. But I think about that hammer that you get that's supposed to do all these cool things. It's supposed to shatter all this blue glass. And I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, wait, I think there might have been blue glass in this one area. And there wasn't. And like I go back to it and there's like nothing that I can do with it. And it's super frustrating that you watch your character progress in the game to get these things and you use them once.
Well, there was blue glass in the mountain, and there was a conch there.
Yeah.
But actually, the hammer you're talking about is actually used in the post game. And I wouldn't even call it the post game, which again, we're gonna get there, people. I wouldn't even call it the post game. It's just the ending of the game. I feel like a lot of that stuff is tied up definitely to get the real ending of this game. But I just think overall, at least for me, this RPG is definitely for somebody on I wouldn't call it beginners, but definitely people that are just trying to enjoy an amazing story. And I think for me, puzzles are great, a welcome addition to RPGs, but I guess I'm there for the story and the combat. And I did love both. And a lot of people feel like it was simplified, but those locks really drove it home. And all the tag team attacks, there was enough for each member of your party to have one with the other. I really love those and the different effects that they did. I overall just enjoyed it. And again, it may have been because of that difficulty spike for me.
For me, like when I'm playing through this game and I'm thinking about balancing out these attacks, it felt like even without an increased difficulty, the cost to what you got for it for a lot of these combos and MP attacks were very, very cost hungry. There was a frustrating balance to the combat for me compared to things that I've played in the past. And I feel like for the gameplay, it kind of does give me that vibe of Baby's first RPG, where like a lot of the things are simplified to the point where you can get anybody into this game and they can enjoy the gameplay if they've never really had something to compare it against.
Dude, Baby's first RPG, I don't know, man. Like Baby's, to me, like if I had to give a Baby's first RPG a title, I'm sorry to say, but I would say it's Pokemon. I feel like Pokemon is Baby's first RPG.
I hear you on why you'd say Pokemon would be kind of more that title, because the thing is, it's a very linear game. It's something that you and I played when we were very, very young. Probably our first RPG.
Dude, I beat that game when I was like 4 years old. So like...
Probably not literally 4, but
no,
yeah.
I probably was.
I get your point. And you know, that speaks to how games were designed back then versus now. And I just think about RPGs that come out now, and I'm a stickler for that. Like, as the developer designed the game, like I want to get that experience. And I guess for me, I had a hard time seeing what they saw in terms of the gameplay.
Well, you know what we did see? All of that gameplay, all of that music thrown into one of the most beautiful environments I had just ever seen.
Oh my God. Yeah. Honestly, like it is weird. Like I said, it's weird because you'll be playing through this game and you kind of forget you're playing something that's like 2D, 2.5D. And I just love that we are just still in 2024 going into this gaming genre, loving this old art style. It won't die.
No, listen, if pixel art dies, my love of gaming dies. I feel like as a staunch lover of the 16-bit era, Super Nintendo, this is just a love letter to, like, almost feels personal, like, to me.
Right.
The way that they work the environment into the story, into the gameplay. So I beat the game 100%. I got every achievement.
Right.
I got the true ending, and it was an absolute treat for me to do that. I loved exploring this world because there was always something that was catching my eye. Specifically, one early area that I just loved was this, it's like the waterfalls right after you beat the wind caverns. That area was so beautiful. I spent way more time there than I think the developers even wanted me to, just because like the music and the battle and the visuals just hit in this harmony there, where like I went all the way down the waterfall and then made my way all the way back just to make sure I didn't miss a damn thing, and I enjoyed every moment of it. I feel like the environment is so good that the exploration for me was just a massive love letter. It was a thank you from the developers, at least for me, of course.
It was a treat to see for sure. My negative cap is still on a little bit here.
Boo! Boo!
I had a hard time because I felt like a lot of the time when I'm looking for something and I'm trying to see where I can go, it did still feel a little bit limited to me. I did think that when I was going through some of the areas that it looked very beautiful, very impressive with what they can do, but I did think that there was a little bit left to be desired when it came to rewarding exploration.
I mean, the big reward you get for exploring is the amazing true ending, which we will get to. But as I continue, speaking of the environment, I think one of the best parts of the storytelling that was weaved with the environment in mind was those cutscenes that would just randomly grace my eyes throughout the game, dude.
The wonderful animation that they did with those cutscenes, it was such a welcome surprise. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, oh my God, if this game looked like this the whole time, I would not be able to put it down.
Dude, it's so good, and seeing the characters that you've grown to love kind of interact in a different way other than your generic RPG like little movements,
right,
was just welcome, to the point where like it would appear and I'm like, oh my God, all these characters are significantly taller than I thought. I kept thinking they were children throughout the game, and then it's like, nope, they're like grown-ass adults basically,
yeah. And that's, dude, the characters in this game, easily one of the best parts about this. Yes, the music was wonderful, terrific. The environments are beautiful, but probably the best part about this whole game was the writing for the story, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, man. I would agree. And again, like I said earlier, this game is a prequel to The Messenger. Again, recommend that you play The Messenger before playing this game. It's not actually required reading, but to me, in my heart, you just get so much out of these characters from playing that first game, and seeing some surprise characters from the first game appear in this game is just all the better, man.
And getting the origin for them as well.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head with that. It was just seeing the Artificer like come.
Oh my gosh,
his origin story being like he's like 5 different people in one brain. Mind blown, bro. Mind blown.
Oh, absolutely. When it comes to all the different characters' designs, how they interacted in the story, in this story, as well as intertwined with the Messenger. I mean, they clearly spent tons upon tons of hours as a team coming up with this, and I really, really can't wait to see where it goes next. I think this is one of those game series that's going to be so good that you're going to see HBO or Amazon picking it up and trying to make it like live action or something. I could totally see it.
Listen, I need an Earthbound movie first, so hold your horses, Sea of Stars. But who did you pick for your playthrough?
I actually picked Zale.
Nice. We complete each other. I chose Valier, so you and I are soulmates.
How did I know you would do that?
No, I loved them as characters. I think their designs were beautiful. I feel like they both have a very distinct personality. But let me tell you, dude, we were not the main characters of this freaking game.
No, I know who you're gonna say.
The title of main character goes to the absolute GOAT, Garl.
Dude, what a lovable character Garl was. I mean, from the very beginning, just this lovable guy who is like one of your buddies, and even though your main character and their partner are like going off becoming solstice warriors, he's like, oh, that's cool, guys, like, you know, I'll just cook you stuff and, you know, beat people with a frying pan, it's no big deal. He's easily the embodiment of that underdog lovable hero.
If I was half the man Garl was, I'd probably cure cancer. Like that dude is just next level. I mean, his optimism is so admirable, but I think the best part about Garl is how it's never about him. It's never about himself. He believes more in our own, like on our character's strengths more than they do.
Yeah.
Dude, like there'd be moments where it's like they freaking Zale and Valier are contemplating their next move. They're overanalyzing what they're gonna do to fight these fighting the Fleshmancer or whatever evil being we have to fight for the day. And Garl's like, don't you worry, townsfolks, my friends are gonna kick their ass. And you're just like, Garl, I love you, but I don't think I'm powered up enough for this crap.
Right. He's like, nah, you got it. I'll cook this for you. And Lewis won't even be able to eat it in the battle.
Dude, half the time, Garl can't even like attack these enemies, but he's like, I'm there just to support you. And listen, there are some story beats where he quite literally saves the day. Yeah. And Garl, you learn to just absolutely adore this character, and they do such a great job making you care about these characters, because later on we get to see the awesome pirate robot assassin Sarai, which is just a mouthful for her.
Yeah, no, I honestly probably one of my favorite characters, and just how she constantly has her plot twists and everything. Oh, yes. Like it's the perfect embodiment of the humor of Sabotage Studio, and not taking itself too seriously, even though there's all these like serious things going on. She's like the perfect character for that, and honestly, quite a badass.
Oh, dude, so sick, man. And when you get the four of you together, and then you recruit the archivist, and one of the like biggest tie-ins to the Messenger being the Great Eagle himself, Rashawn, is such a wonderful character.
Yes. And
again, minor spoilers here, but he is very much directly related to the main bad guy, the Fleshmancer.
Yes.
And their relationship is definitely elaborated on throughout this game, and it is such a wonderful story, and it makes you feel so small in the grand scheme of the craziness that is this universe, because this universe encompasses Sea of Stars and the Messenger, and we're literal gods in this game. And even then, you're still just a little blip in this giant overarching universe, and they did a great job with making us feel that with Rashawn and the Fleshmancer, and it's just grade A character and character development, along with this just wild story that encompasses different universes. Like, what?
Right. Yeah. No, and that's kind of harkening back even to the Messenger when you're going the DLC, and the whole thing that you've been playing with in that game is playing through time, and the DLC is now like transporting you through space into that different reality. So the studio has definitely toyed with that concept in the past, and it stays consistent here. Just another time that you can kind of like see the parallel in the games.
So listen, the game story is just phenomenal, and there's just no way to truly summarize this very long story.
Yeah.
But the story beats are just beautiful. But we are going to go into the biggest spoiler of this game. So this is your last chance. Go play Sea of Stars. Enjoy it. The story is grade A, and this is coming from both of us.
Yeah. No, the story is incredible.
But the hardest thing I've probably ever done in gaming was sit there and watch Garl fucking die.
Yeah, no, that was an absolute gut punch. And, I think that it adds an incredible layer of value and impact when it comes to the storytelling, because it gives you that extra thing to fight for. One of the best characters. You don't normally see these stories killing off one of the strongest characters, and they just do it because they can, because they're that good of writers. But on top of that, it just gives you as a player something to really motivate going forward.
Absolutely. And dude, the cutscene for his funeral, actually, like, Gio said that we were going to cry during this game, and let me tell you, some tears were definitely shed during that scene, and seeing the crushing faces on everybody who loved this dude, which was everybody in the universe loved Garl. The literal gods loved Garl, and it was crushing. I haven't seen anything that crushing since Aerith died in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. And honestly, dude, this wasn't the first time in the game that I cried, because earlier on, there's an ancient crypt where you're going through all of the different messages from the developers and from all of these backers who backed the Kickstarter. And I mean, there's literally hundreds. I know you went through it too, but I remember going in there and spending like 30 minutes just getting lost, because it goes on and on and on. And you're just reading all these statues with like these beautiful tributes to family members, to the gamer, to you, and to everybody else who made it happen. It was like, when you play a game for the first time and beat it as a kid, and you're watching the credits and you're just still living off the high of like, oh, I beat the game, and you're just like looking through it and you're like, yeah, look at all these people who made it, and maybe like a minute in you're like, wow, this is fucking boring. But I'm sure the developers were hoping that you'd just sit there and appreciate everything. This is like going through that, like that feeling that they wanted you to have. This is like the best way to have the credits in a game, in my opinion.
Dude, I spent like 2 of my hours of game time in that crypt, just trying to read as many of the tributes as I could, to the point where my wife joined me in reading these beautiful messages to people long gone and deceased. It was both crushing and incredibly, incredibly beautiful.
So let's cut to the ending. And by the ending, I mean the true ending, because you are the only one between the two of us who actually got to the true ending, because I finished what I thought was the end of the game, and then they told me that I have to collect a bunch of seashells and that I have to make my town better, and I was like, look, I have already put 40 hours into this game. I already have my feelings about the gameplay, and I was done. So you talk to us about the true ending, because I wound up having to look it up, admittedly, and it is great. I'm a little salty about how they did it. But anyway, talk to us.
So going into this game, we were told that the true ending is the only ending. That is the real ending. Like if you hadn't gotten the true ending, you didn't beat the game. And I didn't understand why. I was like, like, well, there's an ending. This is just like almost like I thought it was gonna be like an Easter egg, really. But I enjoyed the game so much that all the extra things to get to the true ending was a bonus for me, because I was having so much fun already. I was actually getting sad that I was beating the game. Thankfully, all of the tasks, like getting the rainbow conch, I was already almost done, because that's how I play my games. I explore every nook and cranny. I think I was missing like maybe 10 by the end of my playthrough. And playing Wheels, you didn't have to tell me twice to play Wheels. I made sure to beat everybody in Wheels, including its creator, because I'm a freaking beast, and I love Wheels.
Wheels
dude.
was fun, and I think that it could be a standalone little game. It was just a mini game for this, but did you know, Lewis?
Ooh.
Apparently, and I can't remember where I saw this, so don't quote me on it, but I could have sworn I read that apparently when they were demoing this game at conventions, apparently the developers had some sort of real, like IRL version of Wheels set up.
No freaking
I could have sworn I read
way.
that somewhere. I've been researching before we recorded this episode, and I can't find the
Dude.
article again. So I'm like, oh, did it really happen?
Nope. I'm gonna believe that it happened, and I would sell various parts of my body to get a real life
But
Wheels.
you're not alone in this, because a lot of the things that I found are people like actually trying to make it themselves, because it's such a fun little mini game.
Dude, Wheels was so good, and the fact that that was part of the requirements to get the true ending was just like already icing on the cake. That is this beautiful, sick RPG cake. But dude, there was so much post game that was just fun. There was hidden bosses that I got to fight. There was like the queen, the forgotten queen or whatever, which added more exploration to Sarai's world. You're like out in the desert trying to find this hidden boss, which was freaking awesome. You go to the arenas of the port town in the beginning of the game, and you're like fighting different bosses there. The end boss for that arena is just some buff dude. It was like, I was expecting to fight a giant monster, because one of the bosses there is a giant clock. So I thought the final boss was going to be this elaborate monster, and it's just a buff dude.
He's like,
okay,
he's
dude.
like, I do 1,000 push-ups every day.
He was freaking
man.
strong in his defense. So like, and then of course, like I mentioned earlier, the puzzles that were there were really intense puzzles. They were not for the faint of heart. Really enjoyed that. So all that to cultivate into something that I didn't see coming, to be honest with you. I made sure not to get the true ending spoiled for me, and I'm so glad I did. But before I get there, late game, we get introduced to a character named Beast.
Yeah, so funny thing, you know how there's certain characters that you've told me off mic that you had a hard time pronouncing?
Sarai I can't even say
Valir, the main character.
The one I played
right.
for with
yeah,
like,
the
for
one you
45 hours.
chose. Yeah. Well, admittedly, I don't have English as my second language as an excuse for this one, because this isn't English. I don't know what this little living glass character is supposed to be, what the origins of the pronunciation are, but I just thought he was like some sort of like alien character, and like aliens probably pronounce words different than we do. I don't know. So like I kept calling him Bist. Because it's like
Matthew
it's B''ST. So like when I was like, oh, it's like bzz, I don't know.
His ultimate is called Altered
You know what's
Beast,
funny?
dude.
I never used his ultimate even once, because
Oh
Rashawn,
my god.
because Rashawn's is so good that that was pretty much Rashawn's and Valir's and Zale's. Those are like the only ultimates I really even cared using by the end of the game.
Dude, oh, you missed out on one of the best ultimates by not completing
Which
the game.
one?
I will get to that, don't you worry. But dude, that's crazy. No, it's Beast, dude. It's
Yeah,
Beast.
no, I
But
see that
anyways,
now.
I felt salty about Beast because like Garl dies and then we kind of get this living glass thrown at
Yeah.
us. And I'm like, how dare you stand where Garl
Right,
stood?
yeah. You stupid blob. We don't care about you.
And I was feeling a certain type of way. I was still in my feelings, still reeling in from the trauma. And it turns out that he's one of the most pivotal characters in this game. At the end, which you looked it up, so you know, but the whole point of getting the true ending is to revive Garl and again, some Chrono Trigger like time traveling shenanigans. You travel through time and you save Garl. And it is one of the most satisfying things that I've done in an RPG, like just as a whole. It was earned. It wasn't like a cop out. It wasn't like a Phoenix Down type situation. You know,
Right.
I'm sure there's some Final Fantasy VII fans out there that wish they could do something similar, but it was earned by testing your mettle in this game. And all of the stuff that I did, all the craziness that I went through to make that happen was worth every moment of it. Especially my love for Garl is everlasting, so I'm so glad I did it. But even then, that's not the true reason that this is the true definitive ending. So in the first playthrough, the first time you fight the final boss, you're not fighting the Fleshmancer. He feels that you're beneath him, so he walks away and he throws in his first lieutenant, and you fight her and you call it a day, and the game kind of ends almost abruptly, in my opinion. In the real ending, he's saying the same thing, and as he's about to leave, Garl just calls this dude out and is like, oh hell no. Get your ass back here. We're gonna freaking fight this out. And you actually fight the Fleshmancer. It took a long time for me to beat him, but again, it was worth every step of the way to actually beat the real boss of this game. And when you beat him, seeing the ending, the true ending, is just, it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see Garl alive at the end of it and see his ultimate, which has him riding the dragon. And
Awesome.
just like, it is so freaking sick, dude. It's such a good ultimate, and overall just an amazing way to end off the story, having Garl there at the end as an old man. It was worth every moment. And to be honest, I'm so excited to see what else the studio comes up with. I mean, I feel like we got a hint in that Sea of Stars, if you get what I'm saying.
Yes, dude. And we mentioned it in our episode about the Messenger, but the big thing that's going on there is you're kind of going through time. And the way we see this as the player is you're going from 8-bit to 16-bit. So in Sabotage Studio fashion, as you're going through the Sea of Stars earlier on in the game, you kind of have this blip where your ship turns from this 32-bit into 64-bit, and it's actually 3D model. And it kind of makes you think, like, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna start playing 64-bit.
Bro, I was pointing at it like, what's going on? I thought the same thing. The moment it turned back into its normal art style, that has to be a hint for the future. It has to be.
Yeah.
We've gone through the 8-bit, we've gone through the 16-bit. What else is next?
I think that when you look to Sabotage Studio's website and you're looking at their like mission statement, there it says right there, like, we are trying to make the like penultimate, like definitive version of the games that we played as kids. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of room for a 3D game. So only time will tell, and we're kind of getting our hopes up here, but we'll see what they wind up doing.
So, with all that being said, my man, what are your final thoughts on this game?
So, you know, it's a tough one to discuss because there's many things that I love about this game. But like when I'm going through, if I'm going to assign a super serious number to a game, you know, it's very arbitrary. It's hard to measure, but I always feel that when you're playing a video game, the gameplay is the most important part. It should be weighed heavier than anything else. It's wonderful if you have beautiful music, but I'm not on Spotify. I'm here to play a game. And at the end of the day, the music is great, but that doesn't define the game for me. And the story was brilliant. It's amazing. It's like I said, I think that we're going to see some TV studios trying to pick it up eventually. But again, I'm not here to watch a movie. I'm here to play a game. And I really, really did feel like there were a lot of really brilliant ideas that were just left on the table. And I want to see the next game that comes out with them putting a little bit heavier footing on this gameplay. If you're going to make that definitive version of the game, then you need to be standing on the shoulders of all these games that you are trying to stand above. And I think that there was so much that they could have taken when it comes to the puzzles, the way that you interact with your environment. Again, I keep comparing to Golden Sun in my head, and I just think about how whenever you unlock a new ability, when you acquire a new item, how this could have been something that you make the player actually have to juggle and think more creatively to get around these obstacles. And I just didn't see that in this game a lot. So, this game was, weirdly enough to me, because they already had so much success with the Messenger, it was a Kickstarter game. And I have only had one personal experience with Kickstarter, which was Yooka-Laylee. It was a spiritual successor to one of my favorite games of all time, Banjo-Kazooie. And in my opinion, there's really only been like a handful of successful Kickstarter games. You've got the likes of, basically if it has Knight in the game, like Shovel Knight and Hollow Knight, like they're bangers. But I think that it creates a weird dynamic for the developer when they have all their funding up front, like all their funding, like a majority of what they're going to get for this game, it's up front. And it's a weird dynamic because you don't normally get that. Pre-orders don't happen until after a game is usually made. So I don't know. I think that, when it comes to this game, I did really, really think it out, and I landed at a 7 out of 10. That might sound harsh for a game that I actually do love. I have some pretty strong criticisms for the gameplay that I stand by.
Fair enough. Well, we are definitely a studio divided here because, as you can tell, I loved this game. I loved the story. I loved the gameplay. I love the music and everything that just cultivated to this masterclass of RPG. It's one of those games that I feel that with more and more time passing, more and more people are going to hop on and realize just what a masterpiece this game is. I feel that there are some criticisms to this game that I would agree with, but nowhere near the same level that people feel towards it, if you know what I mean. I feel that a lot of this can be overlooked just by, again, in my case, just turning up the difficulty one notch. I feel that alone changed the entire game for me. But forget the gameplay. Again, I know that video games aren't about just the music and just the story, but I believe that video games is a medium that is probably even more better suited for a story than any movie or TV show could ever do. I felt like I was part of that grand adventure. I felt like I was Garl's friend. I was so immersed throughout the whole time in the world of Sea of Stars, and seeing it tie in so perfectly with the Messenger. I mean, heck, the game score went overall higher because at the end of it all, I got to revisit the shopkeeper. And when I saw his face, I'm like, oh, this game just went up 2 points. Because getting an update on the boy in the well that we got to hear about in the Messenger and seeing where he is now, which you and I know he's the creator, it's a self-insert story, had me in absolute ugly crying tears on my couch hearing that story. And the game has to be very powerful, and the game needs to have me so invested to have me ugly crying like I just watched Coco. This game this game is just, it's perfect, and because of that I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. And perfection is a hard thing to achieve, and I'm not saying that this game, like you, I'm going to echo you from the Messenger. Just because I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 and I think it's perfection doesn't mean that it doesn't have room to improve.
Absolutely.
Definitely room to improve. Definitely agree that the combat could be better, but I think it's good enough. It's good enough for me to enjoy it. It's the scaling of the difficulty was good enough to keep me engaged. The music had me bopping. The story had me crying. I didn't want any more. Actually, the only thing I wanted more of was more time in that world. And when I 100%ed the game and completely beat it, there was nothing left for me to do. I made my way back to Moon Cradle, listened to Moon Cradle's theme one more time, and shut the game off. And I was sad for 2 days. So I thoroughly enjoy this game, and I recommend it to anybody that's looking for a good RPG.
Well said, bro. Well said.
There you have it, folks. That is our thoughts. That is our opinions. And listen, we could be talking about this game for hours. I wish we could just tell you every little detail of the story like we did for The Messenger, but this story is just so grand, so many twists, so many turns, that the best way to experience this game is to just go out and play it. But before we go, I want to leave you guys with a little something. Today's episode was a studio divided, and I think that's amazing. It's awesome how two seasoned gamers can go into the same universe and come out taking different things from the time spent there. I truly believe RPGs are a special type of game. Depending on the pace of your life, it can really shift your perception on how you feel about it. So I challenge you, go back and finish that RPG. Go back and replay that game you had mixed feelings about. You never know how you'll feel about it today. Thank you for lobbying up with us.
Bye, guys.